So trying to identify whales and dolphins can be quite difficult. I have a couple of excellent books here, but one of the things that you'll soon find is that you generally don't see that. If you do, it's because the animal's breached, jumped out of the water, and you've been very lucky. But in normal circumstances, this isn't what you expect to see. And what you can't get from looking at these sort of books is a feel for what the animals are like. Now, in Aberdeen, we have a wonderful situation where we have bottlenose dolphins in the Aberdeen harbour every day. So because of this, you can really get to know these bottlenose dolphins, and you can watch them, you can observe them, and you can, learn about them. Once you've mastered bottlenose dolphins and you've really got so that you can see all the details, telling other types of cetaceans becomes quite easy, because what you have to do is just compare it to a bottlenose dolphin. So what I'm going to do today is go through some little notes and tips on how to identify different types of cetacean. And one of the things I have to say straight away is that I am not an artist, so these are going to be rough drawings that you can use. So the first one I'll do is bottlenose dolphin. So tend to be large, with a large dorsal fin and quite sort of mottled grey in colour. If you're lucky, you'll be able to tell they're bottlenose dolphins because you can see the nose. The reason being, they do spend quite a bit of time leaping into the air, giving you an excellent view. They tend to be quite sociable, and they tend to be in groups. And one thing I notice when I see them, I tend to feel as though they're quite well organised in a sort of a defensive unit. So quite often you'll see a group in the centre, and this will consist of the calves, the young adults, and the females. And they'll be sort of swimming along in this direction. But quite often they'll have, it almost looks to me like a defensive ring around them. So you'll notice in front there'll be a couple of the big males, and possibly like a male at the side. And it does look as though they're almost like a sort of a police cordon going around them. These are easy to see at Aberdeen Harbour, and they're great fun to watch. You can even at times sometimes see them with a fish that they've smashed into the air. They'll spy hop, they'll do backflips, they'll do a wide range of activities. Now when I first came to Aberdeen, quite often I would have people tell me about the porpoises they'd seen at the harbour entrance. Now if there's a large number of them and you're seeing them well, and they're doing leaps and backflips and catching fish, they're not porpoise, they're dolphins. Harbour porpoise are much smaller and much more shy. So with a harbour porpoise, the best way to imagine when you see them is if you imagine a wheel that sticks through the surface. And as the porpoise goes up, you'll spot the small stubby dorsal fin, which will rotate around, and then the animal will sink and just disappear. So all you're seeing is this body come up, a roll, the little dorsal fin going over, and then it disappears. Now, harbour porpoise are quite difficult to see, and they tend to be further out to sea, so they're not one that we record as often as we could do. In the past, I once did a trip on one of our surveys up to the Northern Isles, where I saw over 130 between Aberdeen and Peterhead, and I don't think this is that unusual. It's just they tend to be further offshore and they're small. And always with cetaceans, you're really hoping to see the animal coming towards you. Sorry, you're hoping to see the animal going at 90 degrees to you. If the animal's coming towards you, all you will see is a little hump. It gets a bit bigger, and then disappears. To be honest, you miss most animals that come in either towards you or going away from you unless they're particularly large. Whereas at the side, you'll see the break of the water, the body appearing with the dorsal fin, and then you'll see them sort of rolling over the dorsal fin, and then the animal just starting to disappear. This is much easier to see, and you've also got the movement forward. This just sort of appears and disappears, so it's much harder. At the other end of the scale from the harbour porpoise, which is this one, is the minke whale. Now with minke whales, what you're looking for is quite often a huge group of birds feeding at the surface. Now what's going on here, and what you're seeing, is the top of a quite major drama that's playing out under the waves. So underneath you will have a ball of fish, small fish. They're all spinning to try and avoid predators. Beneath them will be guillemots and auks, and they swim down. I said I'm not an artist. And they will be attacking the ball of fish from below. To get away from this, the ball of fish will move to the surface, allowing birds like gulls, kittiwakes, gannets to then attack them from above. Now what you're hoping then will happen is a minke whale will come up and swallow the whole bowl of fish. Now if you have flat calm seas, and you don't see this very often, when you get a surfacing of a minke whale, you'll start off with the snout. They tend to break the surface with the snout. You'll then see the long back appear with a tall dorsal fin at the rear. They will tend to then arch their back as they make their dive and then disappear from view. Two things you won't see: you will never see a blow. The only times you may see something like a blow is if it's strongly backlit and the weather's really cold and clear and you're actually seeing its breath. Also, you'll never see the tail. If you see a blow or the tail, it's not a minke whale. Because what we have seen recently in this area are humpback whales. With a humpback whale, so one thing just to say on minkies, they're very clean and sleek. They've got a sharp dorsal fin and they just look quite sort of fast and long. Now in the area we've started to get humpback whales, and there you'll see a big animal surface with a knobbly dorsal fin, and often, but not always, you'll see a blow. It tends to be quite sort of low and often sort of V-shaped, not like one of the larger whales. You'll then see the back start to rise up with a fairly knobbly sort of area behind the dorsal fin. Then sometimes, but rarely here, you can get the tail coming up. The seas here are quite shallow, so this doesn't happen all the time, but if you're lucky, you may get to see this. What you could also sometimes see with a humpback whale is she's longer than that. This followed by a huge splash. They do like to breach. I'm never lucky, I never see them breaching, but they do throw themselves clear of the water and smash back down. Now, every few years, one of these humpback whales decides to take up residence in one of our bays, and this is amazing when it happens. And if it does, then go and see it, because it's an amazing thing to see. Another species that we see, or used to see a lot of, is white-beaked dolphins. So if you remember the bottlenose, white-beaks are quite similar. They tend to be more offshore, so you'll have a large dolphin with a very tall, sharp dorsal fin, and just behind it you'll see this sort of grey patch. So the rest of the animal will be black, and you'll get this sort of light grey patch behind the dorsal fin. If you're very lucky, well no, actually they do leap a lot. If you see them leaping, then you'll see, instead of having the long nose of a bottlenose dolphin, they have a stubby beak. So the head will be black, but this is a white stubby beak. Also, they have effectively a line that goes down the body. And this is like a white patch. So just completing the dolphin. So the sharp dorsal fin. Sort of a grey area. So they do leap, they do jump around quite a bit, and they're a very sort of active, sociable dolphin. If you're out in a boat, they will almost always, if possible, get onto the bow and bow ride the boat. They just seem to love it. 15 years ago, this was actually the most commonly seen dolphin seen in the area, and they've become less common. I don't know whether this is because people are not watching them as often. There used to be a group of us that did a lot of land-based watches, but it could also be that the seas around here are just getting a bit too warm for them. Another species to look out for is the Risso's dolphin. Now the Risso's dolphin again is large, and one of the things you'll notice if you see it well is this sort of humpy head. So with a large male, they're even bigger than white-beaks and bottlenose. They've got very tall dorsal fin. In a large male, you'll notice they're almost white. They're a squid feeder, and where they scar, they end up with white tissue showing. So they start off grey and get progressively darker. If you're very lucky and you see one leap, you'll see that the head has no beak bump at all. They have a blunt head. Now, another thing to look out for with these is they tend to be in deeper water. But as I showed you before with the bottlenose, where you'll have a tight group and sort of outliers, I always think with Risso's dolphin that they've kind of had an argument. They've had a fight, and they're trying to keep out of each other's way. So you'll find there'll be an animal over here, an animal over here, an animal over here, and one over here. And this could be, 200 metres apart. They're going in the same direction, but they're not really talking to each other. Now, a species to look out for that we have seen in the area but not very often is the common dolphin. Now, the common dolphin in the books look really quite yellow and hourglass. However, in Scotland we have a term called peely wally, and that's how they tend to look here. So what you'll notice with them is they're a very sleek, small dolphin, but they move at high speeds. So quite often what you'll see is them making these big leaps, but instead of a bottlenose dolphin that leaps up and splashes, these are doing leaps that are basically travelling through the air is quicker than travelling through the water. So they will leap out of the sea and sort of land here. If you're lucky and you do see this, you'll notice this hourglass sort of coloration of them. So at the back of the body is grey and the front of the body is sort of black on the fins, but this part of the animal here will be a sort of a yellow, but it tends to be quite sort of, as I say, muted in Scotland. Another species that can be seen in the area is the Atlantic white-sided dolphin, but they're hard to see. The main clue to those is most dolphins tend to sort of have a smooth roll, whereas Atlantic white-sided tend to sort of hit the surface with a splash. So you'll see a sort of what's called a rooster tail as they hit the surface. Also, if you see the body, quite frankly, they look as though they have quite a large rear to them. They're like a dolphin with a very large bottom. So you'll tend to see this really big sort of, basically it's a very muscular tailstock. But as I say, you can sometimes see it, they seem to hit the water like this rather than hitting the water flat. So you'll sort of see this sort of splashing. You may pick up the yellow area on the back here. So again, this has got a yellow patch, and this can be quite bright. The last species that I'll quickly say about is the absolute classic, and that's orca killer whales. We recently had a sighting of them in the area. In fact, we've had two sightings of them in the area, and when they surface, you'll quite often see this sort of white eye patch, because they tend to sort of surface with their eyes showing. They seem to look outside. The biggest thing to look for though is on the males, and they have this huge dorsal fin. So this dorsal fin can be up to 2 meters in a large male. You'll then notice that they have a bit of a sort of what's called a saddle behind it. So this is another dolphin with a light grey area. So the animal will be black. There is some sort of white at the rear, which you may see if they leap, but this tends to be a sort of a light grey. And then the rest of the body is black. I know I've exaggerated the dorsal fin, but not by much. As I say, it can be as tall as, well, taller than me, and I'm 6'4", so it can be very tall. The other thing you'll sometimes see with orca is they will actually spy hop. So they will just stick their head out of the water to see what's going on. And again, if you see this, then you get this sort of white eye patch and sort of a white lower jaw. So this is a brief guide to the types of cetaceans that we may see in the area. So we'll be doing whale and dolphin watches, so you can come along and join some of our volunteers and record the cetaceans you're seeing in the area. But yeah, so if you do see anything, please let us know. There'll be an article describing this in our newsletter, so again, if you could give that a watch. And we're a bit short of subscribers for the EGCP YouTube channel. So if you would like to like and subscribe to this, that would be really appreciated. And yeah, get out there and enjoy the wonders of our coastline. Thank you very much for watching.